We all know the classic superhero story. A villain shows up, terrorizes the city, the hero shows up and saves all the problems of their fictional world. Throughout American history, many authors have written stories about superheroes just solving all their world's problems. But what if I told you these fictional characters have actually made a difference to genuine problems plaguing our country? Early involvement with World War II was controversial amongst Americans, as many of the American people believed that was a war that should have been fought exclusively in Europe. But when two Jewish authors that worked for Marvel, Jack Kirby and Joe Simon, found out about what was going on to their people in Europe, they knew they had to take action. So they created issue 1 of Captain America on December 20th of 1940. In this issue, they discussed how Captain America went and fought the Nazis in Europe. This issue did amazing amongst young men, getting them behind the war effort. As you can see right here, this is one of the images that they used to get people behind fighting Nazis in Europe. Obviously, many people, with how popular Captain America is today, many people would be surprised to learn that he was first made as propaganda for the US government. So, even though Captain America brought many people behind the war effort, most Americans wouldn't be for it until the events of Pearl Harbor took place almost a year after the first issue of Captain America being released. Pearl Harbor took place on December 7th of 1941, and the Japanese attacked a naval base in Hawaii. This is the event that led most people to being in support for the war effort. Marvel was not the only company that was making propaganda for the war at the time. Many people have heard of Dr. Seuss. He made propaganda for the war at this time, and so did Walt Disney. As you can see in this image here, Walt Disney made a propaganda film in support of the war effort. After World War II, Captain America was still being used for political purposes. Marvel used him to talk about many political issues in America, such as involvement in the Vietnam War or involvement in the Cold War. They did this until about the 1980s, where controversy over politics being used in comics became a very big deal. And so that's when they created the ICE origin story that we know today. And they said that the Captain America that had been around from the 60s to the 80s was a fake one. And they created the ICE origin story that's still being used today. But this is not the only time that Marvel used one of their characters to talk about politics. One of the most famous Marvel characters ever, the X-Men, were created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee in the early 1960s as an allegory for segregation. This was a topic they were passionate about, and they wanted their audience to be accepting of different people. Professor X, the leader of the X-Men, led them, even though the humans hated the mutants for being different than them, he still led them as a non-violent path in order for them to try to be accepted by the humans. The other mutant leader, Magneto, led the mutants in violence to try to fight the humans in order to force them to gain their respect. This is something similar to Malcolm X. Professor X used his leadership style and similar to Martin Luther King Jr. As you can see today, sometimes fictional characters can save us from our real life issues. Thank you.